Hi there, I'm Marc Pagani, and this is Tasting Tuesdays. Welcome back to Tasting Tuesdays. If you'd like to subscribe to the weekly video whiskey review series, please do click on this little logo right down here. It's not actually there right now. Everyone always sees me pointing at something. There's actually nothing there, but it's on there on the screen. So do that, and then if you want to jump right ahead to the actual tasting where I'm sipping this tasty stuff, please do go ahead and jump ahead to right here. But you'll miss a bunch of really fascinating information. So, Ardbeg Corryvreckan. This stuff, the very first Ardbeg that I had was their Wiegedau, and I'm sure I'm totally butchering that word, although I think I'm saying Corryvreckan correctly, is an Islay single malt Scotch whiskey. So Islay is an island that is a bit southeast of the main part of Scotland, right about down here. I went there in November of 2018, had a blast, spent I think 5 days there and went to all the distilleries on the island. At the time there were 8. And it was a great experience. I did a bunch of like the kind of behind the scenes tours of all the different distilleries. So I got to pull whiskey directly from barrels with a whiskey thief. And I got to bring home bottles, little 250 milliliter bottles of whiskey that I pulled directly from the barrel. So it was really cool. And Islay whiskey, Islay whiskey, which is Scotch whiskey, is generally my favorite whiskey from all the Scottish distilleries. I really like that peaty thing. I know it's a kind of a controversial thing, not controversial, but people either say they love it or they hate it. I wish that people were more open to it, because once you get into it, it's maybe it's an acquired taste, but once you get into it, it's really complex and interesting stuff. So Wiegedau was the first one I had. I'm gonna take off my glasses here because my eyes watering up here. And then I had Corryvreckan not too long after that. And in 2014, I think it was 2014, I went to Jack Rose, a place in DC. I think it's called Jack Rose. It is a huge whiskey bar, huge restaurant, and it has one of the largest collections of whiskey in North America and the United States specifically. And I tried a bunch of great stuff there. I think I had 5 pours total, and my bill was over $300. So like each one of my pours were really, really rare, high-end, crazy stuff. And one of them that I had was the Ardbeg Supernova. And at the time in 2015, I declared that was my favorite whiskey of all time. Like, it was just so amazing. And I ended up buying a couple bottles of that a bit later. But their lineup goes Ardbeg 10-year, Ardbeg Wiegedau, Corryvreckan, and the Anoé is a new one that they just released. That's in there as well. And then there's also the Wee Beastie, which is I think it's a 6-year or 5-year. I should know these things. Anyway, Corryvreckan is one of the whiskeys that they regularly produce every year. It's not one of their one-off kind of limited edition things. And I have had a lot of their limited edition bottles, and they're amazingly tasty. The one that I have right now is called the Black, going after kind of a black sheep thing, B-L-A-A-C-K, and it is fantastic as well. So this particular one is relatively high proof. It's 57.1% alcohol, turbulent, peppery, and dark fruits. It's non-chill filtered, and it retails for generally around anywhere from when I first was buying it was more like $80, but I think these days it goes for anywhere between $90 and $110, depending on where you buy it. So let's learn a little bit more about Ardbeg Corryvreckan. Corryvreckan single malt Scotch whiskey is 114 proof and is not age stated. Ardbeg Corryvreckan takes its name from the famous whirlpool that lies to the north of Islay. Awarded the world's best single malt in 2010 by the World Whiskies Awards.
This bottle is part of Ardbeg's core expression group, which also includes the 5-year-old Wee Beastie, the On OA, the 10-year, and the Wiegedal. It is the priciest of their regularly available bottles, known as their Ultimate range. Ardbeg says nothing about the process or the age, but as it's a single malt whiskey, we do know that it is made from 100% malted barley.
Okay, so now that you know a bit more about this bottle, let's have some whiskey porn. Bow, chicka, bow, bow. Boo-doo, bow, chicka, bow, bow. Bow, chicka, bow, bow. Bow, 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 chicka, bow, bow. Yeah, bow, chicka, bow, bow. Oh, yeah, bow, chicka, bow, bow. Bow, 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 chicka, bow, bow. Boo-doo, bow, chicka, bow, bow. Bow, bow. Scotch is always sexy. It's just sexy. That's all. It's, you know, it's sexy. So I'm going to grab this Ardbeg glass that I actually picked up at the distillery. Ardbeg Tour 2018. Cool. This was established in 1816. Kind of a long story about why many of the distilleries were established right around 1815, 1816. And I'm not going to get into that right now because it's take another 2 minutes or so. But it's something you should look up. It's kind of fascinating. I learned that on several of the tours that I went on when I was in Islay in Scotland. So let's pour this and try it. So definitely a lot lighter color than most of the bourbons and ryes that I review on this page, on this video whiskey review series. I just love the nose of I love the nose of all Ardbegs, and this one in particular is fantastic. It's a cross between the medicinal notes of Lagavulin, which is very kind of Band-Aidy and very medicinal. And I say Band-Aidy, and you'd think that's totally nasty, but it's one of those weird situations where Band-Aids as a flavor is fantastic. It's a cross between Lagavulin and a little bit more of the campfire notes of Laphroaig's, which are a little bit higher in peat content. I think Laphroaig is about 40 parts per million of the phenols, and so they're a bit higher than some of the other, like Kilchoman tends to be 17, 18 to 20, somewhere in there. That's just nerdy, weird whiskey shit that you don't need to know. But anyway, this is definitely in between there. It's in between the medicinal and the campfire. It definitely has a lighter peaty charry. It's not super smoky, but you get the char of the oak in the nose. It's kind of like a slightly burnt s'more, s'mores on the campfire, which has the marshmallow and the graham cracker and the chocolate. If you kind of burnt that a little bit, that's what you'd be getting on the nose. And I find that really pleasant. I mean, it's way different than, American bourbons and ryes and Irish whiskeys and Japanese whiskeys. It's unique in and of itself, and it's something that I really treasure. So let's try the palate. Oh, God. So rich, so full. It's got that sweetness up front, and it's followed by a little bit of sulfur and smokiness, which again, these words, sulfur, smokiness, they're often associated with negative things, like, oh, I'm dying in a fire right now, I'm inhaling smoke. It's not that way. It's really a very positive thing in these whiskeys. And there's a bit of tingle on the roof of my mouth with that creaminess on my tongue, which is part of every whiskey that I love, that rich creaminess that just kind of, wafts across your tongue. Try it again. Oh man, this is a good bottle. It's one of those things that you can readily find in most good liquor stores. At the price, I think it's a good value. Even if it's $100, it's still a cut above everything else. Not everything else, but most other bottles. It's like the end of the end of the palate is kind of like a campfire coated in sugar, if you can think of it that way. It's got the perfect balance, and I think all Ardbeg expressions have this. It's got the perfect balance of sweet and smoky. Not too sweet, not too smoky, not too medicinal, just like really beautifully balanced, which I love about Ardbeg in general. Let's talk about the finish. Yeah, it's initially sweet. It goes to a bit of a dry place, and then it rounds off at the very end. And the lingering aspect of it is the more medicinal stuff that Lagavulin has. Not full-on Band-Aid, but more medicinal. So overall, it's a great pour. It's 57.1%, 114.2, so kind of higher in proof. So, a few drops of water, maybe a small ice cube, would bring down that proof a little bit, make it mellow it out just a little bit. Whenever you add a drop of water to, especially an Islay Scotch, it breaks that kind of capillary layer. Is that the word? There's a layer of phenols on top of the liquid itself that creates kind of a cap. And if you drop a couple drops of water in there, it breaks that cap, almost like water and oil, and it opens it up a little bit. So you get more of the nose at that point, and it definitely changes the flavor. Sometimes it makes it more rich. So that's definitely something you might want to look into if you're going to pour this for yourself. So yeah, great bottle, decent price, not crazy cheap, but not crazy expensive. I would go for it. Corryvreckan by Ardbeg. And I would also go for something else, which would be to subscribe right here by clicking on this little logo right down there. I will see you next week. Thanks for checking it out.